There we go. Hey, welcome to Thursday morning. Nice to have you here live from Lake Wissota across the Civic.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks. I'm off to a strong start already. The jet lag is so almost gone.
Said that
Said
yesterday.
the guy that woke up at 3 o'clock again this morning, but we're working on it. So, continuing to make a great impression on young Master Parker Olson here, who has joined the show as of yesterday. If you missed it,
I'm impressed.
yeah, I'm nothing if not impressive. Not necessarily in a positive way. Anyway, nice to have you here on Lake Wissota for the show this morning. Coming up today, we will continue our second round of interviews with candidates for state Democratic Party chair with Joe Zepecki. We will follow what is happening right now in Washington, D.C., where Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill that's going to cause the economy to come crashing down and blow up the deficit is on the verge of a vote after the House of Representatives has continued to have not its first, but its second all-night session in a row to try to ram this thing through, only to have it be completely derailed by Republicans in the Senate, but, sense of urgency. Also, Ron Johnson's at it again, the foremost conspiracy theorist of the U.S. Senate, is going to investigate Joe Biden for having prostate cancer. We'll look at some new reporting about Sean Duffy's conveniently timed stock sales. We will talk to somebody from Madison who is on the front lines of fighting American poverty, and he's in the nation's capital this week trying to warn members of Congress about the real damage that's going to be done by cutting safety net programs like food assistance and health care coverage. We have a forecast to tell you about from Brittany Merlot where the sun is returning, not so much the warmth, and a new way for listeners to interact with your favorite shows via the Civic Media app. All that and more coming up at 6:06 across the Civic Media Radio Network and right here. We'll see you soon.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Minnesota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It's 6:06 on this Thursday morning, May 22nd, 2025. It is truly a beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're spending your mornings, listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. If you're not listening on a radio, maybe it's through the app. Maybe it's watching us on social media, YouTube or Facebook, or by podcast. However you do it, we're glad to have you here for this Thursday. I've got a question for you. Would you like to leave us a voice note and have an alternative to the texting and the emailing and everything else that's going on out there? We have a new way to do it. We're trying to make it so convenient for folks to reach the show, and we're going to tell you all about the new voice note feature through the Civic Media app coming up in just a little bit. Also, today we're going to continue our second round of interviews with candidates for State Democratic Party Chair. Joe Zepecki is here today. William Garcia will be here tomorrow in our 8 o'clock hour. Devin Remiker was on yesterday. We're going to talk about the cuts being proposed by Donald Trump and congressional Republicans. The House of Representatives is wrapping up its second all-night session to try to ram through this bill with minimal Republican opposition, even though it's probably going to get changed radically in the Senate. But right now, the way it looks in the House would be some massive cuts to vital programs just to give billionaires more tax cuts. And we're going to talk to somebody who's on the front lines of the fight against poverty right here in Wisconsin. And he's in Washington, D.C. this week, trying to warn members of Congress about the real damage that'll be done by cutting safety net programs like food assistance and health care coverage. We're going to talk to Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood about how the cuts being proposed won't do a single thing to curtail abortion care. The cuts that are being considered in Washington are only going to hurt basic health care services provided to women and men all across Wisconsin. Meanwhile, on the Senate side, Wisconsin's senior senator and foremost conspiracy theorist is at it again. Ron Johnson could have been content wishing former President Biden a full recovery from his new battle with prostate cancer. Instead, he announced a committee investigation of Biden's health and questioned his fitness for office. We will assess whether there's validity to the questions or if it's another ghoulish effort to distract from Johnson's work to slash those important services and funding tax cuts for folks in Ron Johnson's tax bracket and above. We'll talk to Chad Holmes about that and more in our 8 o'clock hour. We'll examine some new reporting about Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's conveniently timed stock sales just prior to President Trump's tariff details that sent markets crashing. All that, plus Brittany Merlot with the forecast and more ahead. Brittany's state forecast says the sun returns today, and it has. The warmth, not so much. Brittany says there's still a chance for frost in parts of Wisconsin as we head toward the weekend. So her state forecast for today says partly sunny and breezy statewide, highs ranging from the mid-50s to the mid-60s. Still that north wind at 10 to 20 miles an hour. Cold tonight, scattered frost chances up north, lows in the mid-30s up north to near 40 in the southern parts of the state. Still a northwest wind at 5 to 15 miles an hour. A reminder that Up North News is a separate entity from Civic Media. We love having this partnership every weekday morning from 6 to 9 a.m., but we'd also invite you to follow our team over at upnorthnewswi.com. Click subscribe in the banner on top of the homepage, and you can get signed up for our daily newsletter. Among the stories in there today, Wisconsin is at the center of the world, and we're not even talking politics. We're at the center of the world by a very unique unit of measurement. You know, the 45 degrees of latitude, 90 degrees of longitude, or whatever. It puts us right in the northern half of the Western Hemisphere, the very middle of it. And some folks have gone to see the little historical geographical marker that's out there. But it also means, because there's 4 of these points around the world at 45 degrees and 90 degrees, you always get that question, well, can you dig a hole through the world? And if you could, where would you come out? Well, thanks to these measurements and these points, we now know it would be 1,500 miles southwest of Australia, where maybe we could look for that Malaysian air flight that is still missing. So look for that in our newsletter, along with plenty more coverage, upnorthnewswi.com. Now, I mentioned that we've got new ways to reach the show. Here are the old reliables. Call us or text us, 855-75-CIVIC, 855-752-4842. You can use the Civic Media app to call us or to text us. You can put a comment up on Facebook or YouTube. That would be the Up North News Facebook or YouTube pages, or the Civic Media Facebook or YouTube pages. And Tony asks over on YouTube, radio, what am I, a boomer? I listen digitally. And we appreciate that, watching on social media or wherever. And those are some of the ways that you would reach the station. If you call in, you'll get one Greg Bach at Radio Park, and eventually you'll get Parker Olson, who's in Madison and fresh to the show. Gentlemen, good morning.
Morning, Pat. How you doing?
Hi.
Hi, guys. So, Parker, you came back.
I came back. I'm here. Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we didn't scare you off. It's very good to know.
Not yet.
Claire Bear says it's crisp here in Knowlton. Shiju says, I enjoy watching your lovely faces. That's totally directed toward Greg, the only one with a lovely face on the screen. You teddy bear, you.
No, this lighting is terrible. My hair is gross, and I feel so tired.
He's also in the warm spot of the state. 48 right now. It's 48 in La Crosse.
Suck it, Wisconsin.
Hayward's at 33. Yeesh. It's 43 here in Chippewa Falls, 38 in Amory, 39 in Wausau, 43 in Rapids, 45 in Green Bay, and 46 degrees in Madison right now. So, gentlemen, we talked about the new way to reach the show. Have you, before we unveil it, have you looked at it? Are you as excited about it as the rest of us are?
I'm bursting with fruit flavor, my friends.
Here's the deal. It's very, very simple, and it's simple for me because I don't have to do much with it. It's all on these guys. And Greg is checking the phones right now. It's not that you have to call in. And at this early hour of the day, not a lot of folks really feel like calling in and talking about news that's this early. You certainly can, but that's why we have the texts and the comments. But then there's that Civic Media app that folks can get, and I hold up on my cell phone, poorly lit over here in beautiful Chippewa Falls. And you click on any one of the stations, and I always click on 93.5 The Tap here in Chippewa Falls. And there are all the ways to reach the show. You can call the show, you can text the show, you can email. See if I can get that tip that just right here. There we go. And down at the bottom, along with the call and text and email, there's a new one called Voice Note. And it's exactly what it is. Basically, you're leaving us a voicemail. You're leaving us a voice note. But when you do so, it shows up on the same screen where we see the calls come in and where we see the texts come in. And we would also get the note that you recorded to us. And it allows broadcasting professional experts like Parker Olson here to listen to it and say, hey, we should share that with everybody. And we can then pop that up on air. So if you don't want to talk live on the phone, but you still want to leave a verbal comment instead of putting something in the dumpster fire that is off in the comment section, you can leave us a voicemail like that. Parker, I think this is outstanding, an outstanding advance in app technology for morning radio.
I'm excited about it. Is this what Drop a Line used to mean?
Well, I think drop a line was more like a text or an email, but it could be. I don't know. Let's ask Grandpa Bach, who's back now.
Get off my lawn!
If you're going to drop a line, would this
means
voice note?
making a phone call.
Okay.
That's close enough.
So we've got
is the youngin asking us about our old talkie talks back in the day?
a little asking about the old talkie talks.
Yeah. Well, and apologies to Tony. He took umbrage at the note of dumpster fire in the comment section. He said, I leave only the highest quality comments, and he's very true about that. So thank you for that. He also tells us it's a toasty 38 in Ashland. Alicia says Marinette is a clear and crisp 43 degrees. But Alicia also notes that this sounds like a pretty cool new feature. So now instead of just reading what Tony puts up and what Alicia puts up and what Shiju puts up and everybody else, leave us a voice note. and we'll put that up. We get to hear from you.
It will put it up if it's nice and kind, not mean, and you don't swear.
Well, yeah, yes, exactly. It's got to go through the gatekeepers, which would be Greg and Parker over here.
Yeah.
So go ahead and play with it. We'd love to see, what you guys can hand over to us. All right, one news note here to get things kicked off this morning. This is fresh news from the State Democratic Party of Wisconsin. They have just put out a release announcing their keynote speaker for the State Democratic Convention next month in Wisconsin Dells, and it will be Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock. And so he will be speaking on Friday evening, June 14th, to delegates that will be gathered in the Dells. And then I believe it's on the 15th, on that Saturday, when delegates will be voting on who will be the next state party chair. So again, Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock will be the keynote speaker on Friday night, the 14th. And then on the 15th, the convention continues with selection of a new state party chair. We heard from Devin Remiker yesterday. We'll hear from Joe Zepecki today and William Garcia tomorrow, all in our 8 o'clock hour. So tune in for that. And if you miss it, if you can't catch it, you can always head over to civicmedia.us and listen back to prior episodes. If you've never done that before, every hour of the show is its own little mini podcast episode. So basically every day we crank out 3 episodes for the 6, 7, and 8 a.m. hours so that you don't have to listen back to the whole show, but listen to what you might have missed. So head over to the Civic Media website and do that, or just catch us at the 8 o'clock hour today to hear more from Joe Zepecki. A little sports now at 6:18. Some ninth inning heroics at American Family Field were not enough as the Brewers fell to Baltimore 8-4 in 11 innings. The Brewers were on the verge of losing 3-2 in the bottom of the ninth when Caleb Durbin hit an RBI single to send the game to extras. In the 10th, Baltimore pulled ahead, but the Brewers tied it again on a Jackson Churio RBI single. But then the wheels came off the bus in the 11th. The Orioles got a 3-run homer, and then one more for good measure off pitcher Tyler Alexander. So the Brewers are now 50 games into the season, and they are 2 games below 500 as they head to Pittsburgh for a 4-game series. And that 4-game series starts tonight with pregame at 5:05, both today and tomorrow, on Civic Media stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. Would love to have you listening along on the Brewers radio network through these fine Civic Media stations. All right, I don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on it, but I did mention that it is happening. Yes, Senator Ron Johnson has said he will launch an investigation into President Biden's health. He told Axios that it's in light of, quote unquote, new revelations in that new Jake Tapper book about what they claim are White House efforts to hide the former president's health conditions, and it has reignited attacks from the Republicans toward Biden, who is not president, who cannot do anything right now that would harm Americans the way that Ron Johnson and fellow Republicans could in Congress. So, like many things, buying Greenland, things like that, it's a distraction. It's a ghoulish distraction, but a distraction nonetheless. From the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota, thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Meanwhile, from the comments section, let's see. Your hatred for conservatives won't allow you to be honest. Meanwhile, Cassandra's like, dude, Rojo needs to disappear into the abyss. What a waste of resources. And Shiju, I'd like to launch an investigation into Ron's mental health.
Well, 2 things. Can you bring back the other comment that says we hate people? Because I have a bone to pick with that. Yes. Timothy. Let me know which conspiracy. There's many there's many conspiracies around. We only have a 2-minute break, so I can't really get into that one. Second of all, we don't hate anybody. So your all caps accusation is incorrect. I want to know why Ron Johnson hates Wisconsin. That's what I'd like to know.
There you go. So there's that. So, and again, feel free to leave all that in voice note form as well. Was that call anything we need to know about that you had earlier?
It was Ollie from the Northwoods calling. She wanted to know, and she wanted to let you know there was a budget reconciliation matter last night that she says proposed to cut $500 billion from Medicare.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. I didn't mention the Medicare aspect of it, but yes, we are following that live. And let's see, it looks like the House passed it by one vote, 215 to 214. 2 Republicans voted against it, and 1 voted present.
Cool.
Hero, not all heroes wear capes. So, let's see. Anything else on that? Doesn't look like it. So yeah, we will. It'll go over to the Senate now, but we will spend plenty of time talking about the damage that it's going to be doing to regular folks here in Wisconsin.
Regular folks like Timothy who message in, because I don't know, Timothy, are you a millionaire or a billionaire? Because this is what they're doing to us. All of us, conservatives, libertarians, liberals, it doesn't matter. We don't matter to them. We're not rich.
Yep.
20 seconds.
All right. All right, let's play a new game called Does Pat Know What Day of the Week It Is? I know it's Thursday, but as noted by Joe up in Superior on the text line, I got the days wrong on the state Democratic Convention. I got the dates right, the 14th and the 15th, but apparently this year the convention is a Saturday, Sunday, which is actually really surprising to me, but I know that for years, and I'm sure Republicans have gone through this as well. It's, well, should the convention be on a Friday, Saturday or Saturday, Sunday? I know there's times when it's gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you're talking about roughly 1,000 delegates, give or take, in both parties. Again, these are regular folks, who have jobs and can't necessarily make it on Friday or stay till Sunday. And so, yes, that fault is all mine for assuming the convention was a Friday, Saturday thing. It is a Saturday, Sunday thing, which means that Senator Warnock would be speaking on Saturday night. And then we would probably find out on the Sunday who won the election for state party chair. There's some reporting in the outlet called ProPublica. Some people say ProPublica. Maybe that's where I need to go on that. But anyway, it is all about stock sales of members of Congress. Conveniently timed here, given what has happened with tariffs and markets. And according to its reporting, and I'm just going to read excerpts from it right now, 2 days before President Trump announced dramatic plans for reciprocal tariffs on foreign imports, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy sold stock in almost 36 companies. The February 11th sales occurred near the peak of the stock market just before it began to slide amid concerns about Trump's tariff plans, and ultimately plummeted after the president unveiled the details of the new tariffs on April 2nd. Disclosures filed by Duffy show that he sold somewhere between $75,000 and $600,000 of stock 2 days before Trump's February 13th announcement, and about up to 50,000 more on the day of the announcement. Now, transportation secretaries normally have little to do with tariff policy, the article says, but Duffy has presented himself as one of the intellectual forefathers of Trump's current trade agenda. As a congressman in 2019, Duffy introduced a bill that he named the United States Reciprocal Trade Act. The bill, which did not pass, in many ways mirrors the plan that Trump eventually unveiled. Duffy worked on that bill with trade advisor Peter Navarro. Trump's tariffs were the culmination of that work, Duffy posted online, referring to his own bill in the House. In response to questions from ProPublica, a Transportation Department spokesperson said an outside manager made the trades and Duffy had no input on the timing of the sales. But Duffy is the second cabinet secretary to have sold stock at an opportune time. Last week, ProPublica reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi sold somewhere between $1 and $5 million worth of shares of Trump Media, the president's social media company, on April 2nd. A government ethics agreement required Bondi to sell the shares within 90 days of her confirmation, a deadline that would have given her until early May. So why she sold on that date, April 2nd, is unclear. But after the market closed that day, Trump presented his tariffs, sending the market reeling. Among the stocks sold off by Sean Duffy were Shopify, whose merchants are impacted by the tariffs, and John Deere, the agriculture machinery manufacturer that has projected hundreds of millions of dollars in new costs because of Trump's tariffs. And it gets us back to this basic notion, and if I may be so bold as to steal from Greg Bach right in front of him on the show, this shouldn't be a thing.
Oh, what
See
you
I
doing
did
there?
Yeah.
It's very nice. Very nice.
Members of Congress buying and selling stocks while they're in office.
Yeah. And by the way, both parties, all of them, they all do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
That's when we can completely jump on. What I object to are the people that, I mean, honest to goodness, lose their minds talking about, say, Nancy Pelosi or somebody else, and are unwilling to say the thing that we're saying. Yeah. This should impact both parties. You shouldn't be able to do this. I am quite certain I ran on part of this while running against Sean Duffy in 2012, and we've been talking about it for years before that, and yet we have a Congress that has had its integrity, shattered for many reasons, but this is certainly one of them. You have U.S. Supreme Court justices accepting luxury vacations and things like that, and we have none of the confidence that there are ethics. There are disclosures, but look how wide the disclosures are. We only know that Duffy sold somewhere between $75,000 and $600,000 worth of stock. I'm sorry, but if you're going to be buying and trading stock, I think we should be able to see the full thing. We should see it.
Absolutely.
Because we know how much we pay you. We pay you $174,000 or whatever it is as a salary. We need to know if you're making tens of millions of dollars one way or the other on this.
I'm going to go one step further, Pat. I don't think they should be allowed to buy or sell stocks as people. It's like they can have a blind trust, have someone, but they cannot, and any nefarious, any sort of backdoor or insider deals, you're done. You're out. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Because you're millionaires anyway. So let's not pretend you're of the people.
No. And that's where, again, we get back to Senator Ron Johnson acknowledging that in the last tax bill, the 2017 one, he personally held it up until there was an expanded loophole added for something called pass-through corporations that he said did enrich him personally, and that it also enriched some of his billionaire donors. But here's the thing. As upset as you might be today about this, it doesn't come up enough during the campaigns where, Ron Johnson admitted monkeying with the tax code for personal benefit. But, if you can just convince enough people with negative ads that Mandela Barnes is a dangerous person, well, you should keep Ron Johnson in office despite that. And Sean Duffy's going to do the same thing with whatever he does moving forward. And I would, again, just urge people to keep their eye on the ball for the things that are real, the real ethical lapses that include members of Congress from both parties and now cabinet officials buying and selling stocks at very conveniently timed opportunities. All right, thanks for spending some time as part of your mornings, powered by Up North News here live from Chippewa Falls. We will have more after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Tony says it right. Any tomfoolery and it's off to El Salvador for you. Well, I've got my sunscreen. I'm ready.
I guess the question...
Duffy worked furiously on that bill for a whole 5 minutes. And Shiju, I'm not sure. I want to understand the obsession of little men on pieces of paper. Well,
unfortunately, they've made it so if you don't have it, you're kind of up a creek. So, but I keep on going back. I'm sorry. I'm absolutely not obsessed, but the whole thing with this Timothy guy. I'd like to know what conspiracy theories we've said. That's the thing. I would like to know what we've said about him. What have we said about Ron Johnson that's wrong? There we go. There's the question. What have we said about him that's wrong? I'll wait.
I was going to say I'm thinking, so I'll need to think about that one for a while.
Yeah.
You got anything yet?
I mean, he said that only Democrats mess with the elections. He said that on one of our shows on this network. He said only Democrats are the ones who ever try to mess with elections, but provided no proof whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Just a gut feeling, Pat. Just that.
The FBI is out to get me. That's why they warned me about parroting Russian talking points.
He said he was gonna stand up for the vaccine injured, which
the vaccine injured. That's why he broke his promise not to run for a third term. I've got to stand up for the vaccine injured.
Yeah, there's no such thing as that. That's not a medical term. I know a few doctors. That's not a thing. And also, he's not doing that anyways. Even if it were the case, even if it was what he was doing, he's not doing that right now. He's just getting richer. So, on your back, friend.
And that is today's edition.
I'm
going to go do this now so that we can all get some coffee.
Oh, that's exactly what I need.
Yes, more.
And then we're coming in. Oh yeah, we are.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, and then I kind of lost track of it. So
it's fine. Climate check comes right in. Then you'll introduce. And yep, cool. Yep. I know you already told me that. All right, bye.
Secret Show.
So true. So true. Oh, wait, it says ambrosia. I thought it said amaretto. Okay. Better take that out of this cup. Time to do our weekly climate check with Melissa Baldoff. And this time around, we're going to talk about Donald Trump would love to call it his big, beautiful budget bill. But as one energy newsletter put it, Trump's big oily bill, the anti-clean energy provisions in Trump's budget bill could raise household energy costs by as much as 7%. Melissa Baldoff, hello. How are you?
Well, I'm doing okay. I'd be a whole lot better if this is not what we were dealing with. But, such is life that we've got this, so-called big, beautiful bill that's going to cause, as Forbes is reporting, $1 trillion in economic damage from the House reconciliation bill.
And the funny thing is, and not funny, of course, but that it's so not necessary the way that climate has been politicized rather than, an existential human crisis, a crisis for the planet, but also as an opportunity to create all of these new jobs and all of these new industries. And I'm still looking for anything based in facts or science that would give rationale to what this Trump agenda looks like right now. And I still don't have an answer other than if this is what big oil companies want, then I guess that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only answer here, that this is just, a blatant and corrupt giveaway to, billionaires and polluters. It's great for them, right? Good news for them, bad news for everyone else, in this bill, because there's really no other explanation for it. These are people who ran on a promise to lower costs for the American people, and on everything across the board, we are seeing much higher prices. And when it comes to energy costs, this is just one example. This plan to repeal clean energy tax credits is going to send energy prices through the roof. It's going to, according to analysis, this bill would raise electricity prices for American families by more than $110 a year. This is going to put about 400,000 good paying jobs at risk. And most of those jobs are actually in Republican districts. This is real people and real families, real households that are impacted by these decisions. And quite frankly, these Republicans know it, and the rank and file folks, they know how unpopular this is. And, I have to imagine that's part of why they're doing some of these things and making these votes in the middle of the night, because they don't want the light of day on some of these decisions that they're making.
No, which is why we talk about them as often as we do. And some of it is just flat out grifting. The bill would also allow gas pipeline developers to pay a $10 million fee to bypass the normal permitting process. It would allow fossil fuel companies to pay the Department of Energy a $1 million fee to determine that a proposed methane gas export facility is, quote, in the public interest. Or as written up by the climate group Evergreen Action, this makes a farce of our permitting process and essentially legalizes corruption with a pay-to-play privilege for gas pipelines, and that Americans will be severely impacted by gas pipelines being built through their communities. Again, it seems like such a gimme question, Melissa, but there's a reason why we have a, quote, normal permitting process for these kinds of things.
Exactly. There's a reason why we have a process for things, and it is to ensure that there is fairness. There is, there are standards that are followed, that there are quality controls, that communities that are impacted have an opportunity to, to engage in the process. But as with most things, we know that that Trump and his administration, they value influence and money more than any of those things. So whether it's allowing polluters to just buy in to a pipeline facility, or whether it's allowing people to just buy into our immigration system, they don't want to follow normal rules when it comes to their friends and someone they think might be able to enrich them.
It's Tony puts it up on YouTube so well. Finally, Republicans can be corrupt in public and not have to hide it anymore. I mean, that again, putting on your political strategist hat here is just the the time I never thought we'd live in, where, well, if you do your corruption right out there in the open, people will say, well, it must not be corrupt if he's doing it right out there in the open. But it is still what it is. It's still, legalized bribery.
Exactly. It's just it really is stunning to watch every single day, the things that are really being normalized by Trump and this administration, and it is all the more important that we continue to talk about it like we do here, and like so many others are, and talking about it, because we cannot ever let it become normal. We can't let it become the standard. We can't let people believe that just because they are doing it out in the open, that it is okay, that it is something that is what we want this country to be, and to be representative of who we are as Americans, because it is counter to everything that this country was founded on and that we believe.
Melissa Boldoff with our climate check. As always, Melissa, thanks for catching up. We'll do it again next week.
Sounds good.
All right, this is a bit of a twofer in this segment here, along with that excerpt from our visit with Melissa near the end of the show yesterday. We also get to hear now from new state Supreme Court candidate Chris Taylor and her Tuesday appearance on the Maggie Dawn Show.
I have really focused my entire 30-year legal career as an attorney, as a legislator, and as a judge on protecting people's freedoms, protecting people's rights. I want to continue to do that kind of work as a justice on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. My priority as a judge is that Wisconsinites get access to justice in the fairest, most impartial, most independent way possible. Ever since I was a little kid, a little girl, I really saw that the law is a way to improve people's lives. And all I wanted to ever be was an attorney. And I dreamt of being a judge because I thought you could just do so much good for people. So I'm really committed to that. I really think government needs to work for the people of Wisconsin. The judiciary needs to be about the people of the state. And, I'm excited to do it. I know it's a long road, but I have great faith and confidence in Wisconsinites, and I'm just really heartened by all the support that I've received so far.
I wanted to ask you, as you mentioned, Judge Taylor, you've been a Democratic legislator. You were a lawyer for Planned Parenthood. You also served policy director. And I asked now Justice, or soon to be sworn in Justice Crawford, now Judge Crawford, the same question when she was running. How do you assure Wisconsin voters that you can set aside your prior advocacy for a particular organization and set of issues, and as a Democratic legislator to be an apolitical jurist on the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
Well, Maggie, look, I've been a judge now for 5 years. I've been a circuit court judge, and now I'm on the Court of Appeals. And I understand the difference between a legislator and a judge. As a judge, I look at the law, I apply the law to the facts of the case, and I try to do it in the most fair way possible so people are heard, so people feel like they are getting justice, so people feel like it's a fair process. So that's what I've done for 5 years. It's just a different role. But I have to say, being a legislator is a great advantage to me as a judge. I understand the legislative process, a lot of what we do, a lot of what I do as a judge, a lot about what judges do is interpret the law. We have to know legislative intent. We have to look at statutes very closely. So I really think it makes me a unique candidate in that way. I have looked at the law from so many different angles. As an attorney, I was in private practice the first 6 years of being in my legal career. So I've also been in private practice. And then, as you acknowledged, going over to Planned Parenthood and doing law and policy for them, then in the legislature, being a circuit court judge where people were in front of me every single day. And now at the Court of Appeals, I just have a really unique background and an experience that really has taught me that people are the center of the laws. People are what matters. So every case I decide, I'm always thinking about who's this going to impact, who's this going to affect. And I'm proud of the things I've worked on. I think that the values that I have are reflected and are held throughout the state of Wisconsin. I don't think it's at all unusual to feel that women and families should make their own personal and private health care decisions. I agree with the state Supreme Court's decision that we had unfair maps that discounted people's votes. These are values that I hold very, very, very dear to me. But I have shown how independent I can be. I was independent in the legislature. I worked with Democrats, Republicans. I didn't always agree with everything, but I'll tell you, I have always been committed to working out problems, to reaching across to other people who may not see things exactly how I do, and coming up with solutions to people's problems. And that's what government really should be. Certainly that's what the judiciary should be. That's what we do every single day.
That again was appeals court judge Chris Taylor, who is now running for state Supreme Court and will be likely challenging Rebecca Bradley, the conservative justice whose 10-year term is going to be up next year. And there was an interesting word there that you heard over and over again, and I think for good reason: values. I recall once upon a time it was the folks on the right who ran on, family values. And then so much of what they did, either in their policy or in their personal actions, showed a dedication to anything but family values. And so now you have people from the left side of the aisle predominantly talking about values. And in Chris Taylor's case, the values that connect her to most people in Wisconsin as an attorney, as a legislator, as a circuit court judge, and now an appeals court judge. And keep in mind that for the whole history of this republic, we have had lawyers go on to serve in politics. We've had politicians serve as judges. So there's nothing really new here, except that unlike previous campaigns where candidates tried to put some distance, they were kind of above it all. We're in a time now where candidates for judge or for justice want to show a connection with the people who will be voting and who truly espouses their values. Chris Taylor has been doing that for her whole life. Compare that to somebody like Donald Trump or Ron Johnson or other people of high incomes and what their values are making them do in Washington this very hour as we speak. Today's history lesson is next, as we always do, mornings up north on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Secret Show.
Hey, Greg. Hey, Greg.
Yeah.
Greg.
Yeah.
Guess what? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
You're a loon. You're part of the daily liberal lunacy on this page. You're a
Mike. Loon. I mean, if that's your business, I'm glad you just advertised yourself on social media like that. Good
I
work.
Doubt it. Yeah.
Whatever.
I'm sorry. We don't normally pop these up during the commercial breaks, but today they seem to serve a
they're
purpose.
Apt, and also prove why. Why am I loony? Because I love this country and I want democracy to happen for you, Mike, for you, Timothy, and I don't want you guys to be screwed out of your homes. I mean, whatever.
See, I don't have a soundboard. I can't bring up "I'm proud to be an American" behind you because that was great.
What I can bring up is, yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a long while, and there's no Brittany here to share it with.
Don't care.
Okay.
Parker's here.
Yep. I am a lineman for the county.
Yeah, boys.
And I drive. What? No, sorry.
Parker's never heard of this song yet.
Not once. Nope.
Oh boy.
Parker, you're. May I ask how old you are?
I graduated on a Saturday. I am 22.
What is Luke trying to say?
He said, "Please stop singing."
Oh, come on.
I didn't want to assume that you were 22 because I graduated from college later in life, so I wasn't sure how old you were. But I just cannot wait for the back and forth of Pat making a reference and you going, "What?"
I'm trying to get better at that.
I was just saying to Luke, I think that this
Gotta go. We're going 15 seconds.
This was the number one song in America 48 years ago today. On this day in 1977, Stevie Wonder hit number one with Sir Duke, a tribute to Duke Ellington, who died a couple of years earlier. Welcome to today's history lesson for this May 22nd, 2025, where Bernie Taupin turns 75 years old today, longtime songwriting partner with Elton John, and a great songwriter in his own right. Back to 1977, though, for a moment, because this was the number one song on the album chart this day in 1977. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors took over the top of the album chart from the Eagles album Hotel California. That was a pretty big year for albums that year, huh?
Boy, Stevie Wonder, Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, whatever happened to them? They're just, they're nothing.
Yeah, bunch of fly-by-nights, yes.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, reminds me, we are talking, we've got young Parker Olson here joining us, freshly graduated from UW Oshkosh, correct? Go Titans.
No.
No, what?
Whitewater.
Whitewater.
Yeah.
Who was the Oshkosh one? That was that's Dom. Sorry.
Parker graduated from Whitewater. It is, go fighting Whitewater Waves. That's their mascot. It's a wave. It's a Wisconsin Dells Wave Park. That's their entire mascot.
Either way, the point I was trying to make with both of our two new producers here is that I'm going to try to get better about having a history segment that isn't just me saying, "Hey, have you ever heard of this song? You're so young."
To be fair, and I've made this point before, and Parker, I think you'll enjoy this. You, for who you are, where you live, all the things, you put some very modern songs in there, or modern-ish. Like, there is definitely songs that younger people have heard, and I think you do a good job of that.
Well, there you go.
That was called a compliment, man. Seriously.
I know. They don't deal with that in this generation. It's just, the stuff in the comment section. Tony on YouTube, what's an album? Tony. All right, let's get to the number one song this week in 1961 by Ernie Cato.
Mother-in-law, 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 mother-in-law.
You see, boys and girls, this was back in an era where making fun of your mother-in-law was all the rage in songs and in TV plots and everything. And now we live in an era why would you do that? But it was a running gag back then. You could have a number one song based on
not
your
to mention,
mother-in-law.
Like, my mother-in-law is amazing.
I was going to say, mine's a saint.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. On this day in 1804, the Lewis and Clark expedition officially got underway as they left St. Charles, Missouri. On this day in 1840, the British government stopped sending prisoners to Australia after about 60 years. Things are coming around again. Now we're shipping people off to El Salvador. Well, potato. The Beatles had their 8th number one hit in the U.S. this week in 1965. This was the number one song 60 years ago today. Now, if you're going, hey, but do these guys have any staying power? 11 years later, this week in 1976, Paul McCartney and Wings had the number one song in the country. And didn't we just talk about this the other day? Like, this is the Paul McCartney song in terms of how he wants to write.
Yeah,
I'm just going to do silly love songs.
Yeah, he stopped writing about anything real by like 1971. Everything is just like, I love you, the world is great, and I am rich, and I'm Paul McCartney, and you're not.
The
I love Christmas time.
No, don't you dare.
I don't have it up for playing right now at this
Don't
moment.
you dare. We cannot we don't have enough time to break in Parker to all of the inside jokes of this program. Though we did sing Wichita lineman to him during the commercial break. Anyway,
and Luke didn't appreciate it. So
no,
whatever.
He did not. To which, I'm like, wait, Tony put up on YouTube, does Luke want to be the one singing? I don't think so. Or maybe Luke does. Do you think Luke is secretly jealous that he hasn't sung Wichita lineman with us?
I think Luke is secretly the lead singer of like a cover band somewhere in like Middleton, and he plays a Thursday night gig. He's like Duke Silver from Parks and Rec.
He's like our own Hannah Montana. We don't know what a star he actually is behind the scenes. The Wright brothers were granted a U.S. patent this day in 1906 for their flying machine.
I heard Righteous Brothers. I'm like, what?
No, the Wright brothers.
Yes. I know.
You've lost that flying feeling. Finally, on this day in 1976, Blue Oyster Cult released their most popular album, Agents of Fortune. It sold over 1 million copies thanks to one little single on that album.
Get your cowbells ready.
See, and this is the point now where, again, I'm not going to take it out on Parker, but there are these songs where my daughters, when they were like teenagers, they'd hear something like that and they'd go, oh, wait, the cowbell thing, was that from a real song? And I'd just like slump over my steering wheel. I'm like, yes. And then I'd find the original song to play for them. But
Dad, Paul McCartney was in a band before Wings? What?
I was somewhere in my like late 20s when I heard much younger folks, like pre-teens or something, describe Wings as describe the Beatles as Paul McCartney's first backup band. Keep in mind that Paul McCartney and Wings was like the big band at the time.
Yeah.
And it killed me. I died a little bit that day. This is National Chardonnay Day. If you're more of a beer person, today is National Craft Distillery Day.
That's not beer, Pat. Come on, man. That's not beer.
Okay.
That's spirits.
Oh, distillery for spirits. Okay, make your own booze. Yeah, this is Buy a Musical Instrument Day.
Done.
And this is National Solitaire Day, which I never play like with the deck of cards, but from the trip last week, that is like my go-to phone game on an airplane.
I was like, how do you play it then? You're like, I didn't think of phone. I just thought when you said I don't play with the deck of cards, I'm like, then what game are you playing?
I'm playing 3-dimensional chess with Greg Box Mind right now. That's what it is. So much ahead coming up in our next hour. We've got Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood Advocates. Zab Martinez is going to talk about helping people get SNAP and Medicaid benefits and how much they would be hurt in Wisconsin under Trump's new bill. Chad Holmes, Joe Zepecki, Brittany Merlot. 2 more hours to go as we get rolling with another one of these Thursday mornings powered by Up North News. I'm Pat Kreitlow on the Civic Media Radio Network. Parker playing the cowbell. That was solid. Way to go.
Secret show.
Wait.
Secret show.
What?
Is there an echo? I hear an echo.
I don't know. Could it come from the
Secret
Madison board?
show.
Yeah, it's weird.
I'm not hearing it.
I did.
Okay.
That's odd. Okay.
All right. All right.
You loony lefties.
Parker, can you hear me?
Yes.
I need a cultural touchstone on this from Shiju. Kind of like how Gwen Stefani's Rich Girl is a remake from Fiddler on the Roof. Can you check that out as a Gwen Stefani devotee? Means nothing to you, does it?
Not
okay. All right. I'll go check it out myself. I just wanted to take the easy route first. All right. Thank you for being my representative of youth.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Glad I can bring that voice.
You bet. How's Brittany today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good, good.
Good.
Good. Tony. Geez, Parker is even making me feel old. That's not cool. Ha ha, Tony. Welcome to the club.
Oh, there we go. Already making an impact.
Yep.
How you doing, Brittany?
Pretty good. How are you, Greg?
Doing well. Good. You sound good. You sound good. We come back in less than 20 seconds.
Awesome.
And I sent you a message just now. You feel free to message me later.
Okay.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
All right, the second cup of coffee has been poured, so good morning. It is 7:06, and it is nice to have you here up north on this Thursday morning, May 22nd. We've got Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood Advocates standing by to talk to us about the dangers of the budget cuts being proposed by Donald Trump and congressional Republicans on Medicaid, on health care, and more. In our second half hour here, we'll be talking to a gentleman from Dane County who helps get people enrolled for Medicaid and SNAP food assistance benefits. He's gone to Washington, D.C. this week to try to persuade congressional Republicans not to make these dangerous cuts to people's vital services for health care, for nutrition, and more. But as we've learned in the past hour, the House of Representatives, by one of the narrowest of margins, did pass their so-called big, beautiful bill and sent it on to the Senate with punishing cuts to all of these programs and more. It will no doubt be altered by Republicans who control the U.S. Senate, but some kind of punishing cuts will be there nonetheless to fund billionaire tax cuts. And we'll talk to Michelle Velasquez and Zab Martinez throughout the course of this hour more about that. Then in our 8 o'clock hour, we will be talking to Joe Zepecki, a candidate for state Democratic Party chair. We are doing that back to back to back. We talked to Devin Remiker yesterday. We'll talk to William Garcia tomorrow, all in our 8 o'clock hour. Also coming up in today's 8 o'clock hour, Sean O'Malley will talk to us about money and markets, and we'll check in with Chad Holmes as well for stories that he's following for Civic Media in the Wausau area. So much ahead, but let's first turn our attention to meteorologist Brittany Merlot, who, look at that smile she's got. You can tell the sun is out. Pat's not going to yell anymore. It's gorgeous out there. Greg's playing the harp. He actually brings one into the studio. It's crazy. And so here we are on a sun-splashed Thursday morning. Brittany, good morning.
Oh, good morning. That's sun-splashed. Oh, yes. That sounds so good. And that's exactly what's happening out there. If you don't have it in full force just yet down south, don't worry. It's headed your way. I don't see a cloud in the sky right now in central Wisconsin. It is a little bit more cloudy, though, down south. We do still have a frost advisory in effect until 9 o'clock this morning, far up north. Temperatures are at 30 degrees into Ashland and Superior. Yeah, below freezing. We're still going to see some cold nights ahead as these clear skies take over. It's 48 degrees right now into Kenosha, and it's going to be partly sunny throughout the entire day today. We are going to hit highs in those mid to upper 50s. But of course, more scattered frost is possible north. We've got a ton of sunshine still tomorrow, for Saturday, for Sunday. Maybe a few more clouds out there Monday and a chance of showers, but dry conditions and slowly warming temperatures. We will hit those 60s all across the state as soon as tomorrow. We're going to keep rising a few degrees every single day, and then we'll be in the upper 60s by Memorial Day.
All right. From Rob in Tigerton, good morning. It's sunny and 41 degrees. We picked up 3/4 of an inch of rain from Tuesday through last night. Between breaks, I got 4 yards mowed in Tigerton and got 5 more to do today. The farmer that leases my family farm told me the recent cool weather has the hay crop yields a little lower because of those recent cooler temperatures. Rob apparently is liking the daily history lesson because he says that Greg and I are Wisconsin's version of Casey Kasem for music history.
Thank you very much.
And I love that. Let's see. Rob says he's got 6 more yards to do today, but that Brittany is always sunshine every day.
Aww.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob.
That was so nice. We're going to do this again.
And in terms of, again, talking about music history, especially now with Parker Olson joining the show here, Alicia says, anyone my kid's age makes me feel old right now. And Cassandra says, hey, Alicia, my oldest, it's only 7, and it makes me feel old. So the fact that Tony's writing up in Ashland that Parker is making him feel old just warms my heart to know that it's just all part of the circle of life here.
Yeah.
Where we've got, you know what? Maybe I'll run this one by Brittany over here. We were talking about musical remakes.
Sure.
And which one did I just ask you about? It was a Gwen Stefani song from Shiju there, right, Parker? Oh, yeah, here it is. Shiju says, kind of like Gwen Stefani's Rich Girl is a remake from Fiddler on the Roof.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
she samples that. Yeah. She's like,
oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, I did.
She
hear
doesn't
that.
cover it, but she uses the music as the bedrock of the track.
Oh,
my mind is blown.
But
I didn't know that.
I see.
Yeah.
I love these little musical nuggets that people
I
drop
could talk
in.
about this all day.
Oh, there is this line between sampling and plagiarism. Okay, and nobody can say clearly where the line is for any given song, but when sampling is done right, absolutely love it. But there's other songs where you go, oh, you're just ripping off this other person, So
Looking at you, The Strokes. What?
Parker, do you not agree with that?
I think he's looking around for The
I'm
Strokes
just
right
looking
now.
around.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I'm sure I'm getting a message from Luke going, what do you mean? Because I bet you Luke loves The Strokes.
I'll bet that's part of his cover band. He probably sings a lot of those. Brittany, thank you. We'll get another update in our next hour.
Sounds good.
All right. Along the way, you can join the show 855-75-CIVIC, 855-750-4842. You can also use the Civic Media app to call the show, text the show, and now we are just introducing a fresh new feature on the Civic Media app, voice notes. So you can, again, type in a message to us, or you can call live. But if you want to leave us something, but you don't want to talk live on the phone, on the radio, use the voice note feature. Go to any one of the radio stations where we're on and hit that voice note, and you can record a short voice message to us. And if we like it, if you're making a good point, if you're asking a good question, we'll pop that up on the radio as well. So again, part of the Civic Media app. At 7:13, let's talk a bit more about what is being proposed by congressional Republicans, President Trump, Elon Musk, and others who, and I cannot say this enough times, are making massive spending cuts that are not designed to offset harm to the national debt. They're not designed to put money back into the pocket of middle-class Americans. Because if either one of those things were happening, there might be more public support for them. But they're not. All of these cuts that are being made are going to help pay for more tax cuts for the very wealthy and blow up the debt and the budget deficit. So what's it going to do to real folks? And Michelle Velasquez joins us now from Planned Parenthood Advocates of Wisconsin, and we'll be talking in the next half hour with a benefit specialist talking specifically about Medicaid and SNAP and the way folks would be hurt in Wisconsin as well. Michelle, hello. How are you?
Good morning. I'm okay, all things considered.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when you look at, the totality, I mean, the numbers are staggering in terms of, what would be the number of people that would be losing Medicaid, who'd lose coverage under the Affordable Care Act, so many other things. From a Planned Parenthood healthcare standpoint, I know you're certainly running the numbers on how harmful this would be.
Absolutely. There is actually a specific provision in this bill that would defund Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin and all Planned Parenthoods who provide abortion care around the country in places where it has remained legal. And that is because there is a provision that specifically would prohibit Medicaid reimbursement for health services, although unrelated to abortion, prohibit that reimbursement to nonprofit family planning providers that also provide abortion care. So in Wisconsin, that would really jeopardize Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin's ability to continue to provide the extensive care that it currently does to about 50 to 60,000 patients annually at 21 health centers across the state.
And that is a point that really needs to be made, I think, repeatedly, is that because so many people have tried to equate Planned Parenthood with only abortion services, that there is so much more to it, and that the federal funds that we're talking about here they're not, it doesn't sound to me like they're going to stop one abortion, that this is all about all of the other healthcare services that Planned Parenthood provides.
Absolutely. Federal and state Medicaid dollars in Wisconsin already do not fund abortion. So those dollars are never used to reimburse for abortion care. However, what they are used for is to ensure that people across the state in rural communities, in underserved communities, communities without access to affordable quality healthcare can get birth control, STI testing and treatment, cancer screenings, well women's visits, all of the sort of what I would consider basic healthcare that everybody deserves to have access to. And that's really what's at stake here.
And this isn't just women as well that receive basic healthcare services from Planned Parenthood.
Absolutely. All people, men, women, non-binary people from all communities, all walks of life are always welcome at Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin, and they receive excellent, high quality expert care in sexual and reproductive health. And in fact, defunding Planned Parenthood would save no money to the federal government and would actually end up costing the federal government more money. And the reason is because people will go without healthcare. They'd go without birth control. So there would be potentially STIs that would go untreated that need more extensive treatment down the road or that lead to other health issues. There would be unplanned pregnancies. that people would then be forced to continue because they don't have access to abortion care or they didn't have access to birth control. And now there are additional costs, of course, related to those types of things, cancers that go undetected and then need more treatment, people going to emergency rooms or urgent care departments rather than seeking those healthcare services at Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin where they're currently receiving that care.
Now, people who think of Planned Parenthood as just these urban clinics in a few city centers, we know what the rural healthcare crisis is like, and I would make a safe bet that your patient base is not restricted to folks who live in the cities where your clinics are located.
That's absolutely correct. We have Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin has 21 health centers across the state. There's a health center in Eau Claire, La Crosse, Green Bay, a few in the Fox Valley, Wisconsin Rapids. So there's a virtual health center so that people can access quite a lot of care through telehealth services. So the reach is very, very wide across the state.
We were talking to Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood Advocates about the punishing cuts that are being put in place and how they would impact things like Medicaid and services that are provided. And again, we're talking about this from a Wisconsin standpoint, but you would know that Planned Parenthood services nationwide, I mean, it's just got to be a staggering number of people who would be impacted if this current budget were to pass as is.
Absolutely. There's nearly 200 health centers operated by various Planned Parenthood affiliates across the country. And this defund would result in more than 1 million people losing access to healthcare.
We will be talking more in our next half hour about some of the other cuts being made by Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress on Wisconsin families who are in need of food assistance and stable and affordable health care. That's all ahead yet here on the program this morning. Quick check of sports at 7:19 before we take a break. There were some ninth inning heroics yesterday at American Family Field. It wasn't quite enough as the Brewers fell to Baltimore 8-4 in 11 innings. The Brewers are on the verge of losing 3-2, but a bottom of the ninth RBI single by Caleb Durbin sent the game to extras. In the 10th, Baltimore pulled ahead, but the Brewers tied it again on a Jackson Churio RBI single. But then in the 11th, the Orioles got to pitcher Tyler Alexander with a 3-run homer and one more for good measure. The Brewers now travel to Pittsburgh, and the pregame coverage will begin at 5:05 on several Civic Media stations. Head over to civicmedia.us to learn much more. From the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota, thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Okay, we're in break, and Michelle, this is a 2.5 minute break, and then we'll pick up for another few minutes here. Are there other areas that you want us to touch on here, Wisconsin or nationally?
I think that I guess the message I'd want to get out is that Planned Parenthood has been around for 90 years in this state and will continue to fight to ensure that we can provide health care. But the reality is that that it will look very different if this defund goes through.
Have you seen anything that would, I know that there's a big difference between what Senate Republicans want to cut versus House Republicans. I've seen it most notably with like SNAP benefits. But do you have any sense that in the Senate, some of these Medicaid cuts are going to be mollified, or should we not assume that?
I'm not 100% sure. I guess I wouldn't make any, part of me would like to think that I think there's going to be things about the bill in the Senate that won't match the House, and that's going to be the reason why. But I'm not so sure about the defund Planned Parenthood part, because that is really an effort to ban abortion, because they're not going to do it they're not going to be able to put through an abortion ban. So they're going to they're going to essentially dismantle with one of the largest family planning providers who also provides abortions.
Yep, exactly. All right, we'll be back in about 45 seconds. I'll tuck you back in the waiting room for a sec here, and we'll be right back. while I was away on vacation, here's something that happened over at our website, upnorthnewswi.com. This year's edition of the Madison Food Guide dropped. Now, I know people are going to go, what's Up North News? You're just supposed to talk. No. We are, all of Wisconsin is America's Up North. And so we talk about all things Wisconsin. And we have a whole lot of readers and listeners in the Madison area. And a feature that we started some time back that was especially popular was a Madison Food Guide. So that's been all redone and updated for 2025. And so what you do is you go to the website, upnorthnewswi.com, and then up on top there where there's all the little subsections and everything, click on the one that says local. And under that local, you'll see Madison Food Guide. And it is article after article, the best cheese curds, the best restaurants overall, where to find the best ice cream, who makes the best pizza, who makes the best old fashioned, where are the most breathtaking views in Madison, the best bar food. So the Madison Food Guide is out. Head over to upnorthnewswi.com to learn all about that. Let's continue our conversation now with Michelle Velasquez from Planned Parenthood Advocates. We're talking about what Congress is considering, what the House has just passed, and the massive cuts to Medicaid and to healthcare services that would be included in all of this. There was earlier from Wisconsin, 28 state legislators who signed a letter calling on Congress to oppose these efforts and outlined all of the ways that people rely on Planned Parenthood as an entry point to health care, the tens of thousands of people that would be involved. And Michelle, this is something that is not new to Planned Parenthood in terms of providing basic health care. This is something you've been doing for decades.
Absolutely. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin has been around for 90 years. And this is certainly not the first time that it has faced attacks. And it still is standing 90 years later. And certainly we intend to fight every single day and work really hard to continue to be able to provide all of these essential health services that really help communities thrive. I mean, people need these really basic health cares to live healthy lives, to be able to pursue their passions in life, whatever it is that they want to do. So things like birth control and cancer screenings and just being able to remain healthy is really an essential part of a healthy community. And so while these attacks would be absolutely devastating to that infrastructure, I know that Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin is not going anywhere, but the extent of the care that we can provide may have to look really different. This is a really, really serious threat, not just in Wisconsin and not just for Planned Parenthood, right? Like this is about all other healthcare, and as you're going to talk to somebody in a little bit, SNAP benefits. So just these really basic, essential things that our government ought to be investing in with tax dollars are likely to go away. And as you mentioned at the top of the hour, not to put back in the pockets of Americans, but to essentially fund bigger tax breaks for the uber wealthy.
And that's the thing. It's not like the savings are going into, back into the middle class. And they're doing this despite knowing that they're going against the grain of where most Americans' values are and where public opinion is. Planned Parenthood has consistently, polled as being more popular than many elected officials or parties, and that people consistently do not want politicians interfering in their health care. And cuts like this are certainly a big way of doing that. 1 in 3 women have been to a Planned Parenthood health center for care, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation. And, some 77% of people oppose taking away funds for birth control people with low incomes. And that includes, by the way, 63% of Trump voters in one poll. There really is nothing mainstream, Michelle, about what this Congress is doing right now.
You're absolutely right. I mean, people share, I think there's a lot of common values that people have across the political spectrum. And one is that they want their family, their friends, and people in their community to have access to affordable, high quality healthcare at all the stages of their life, when they're children, when they're teenagers, when they're young adults entering, some of their first relationships and as they get older as well. And so we can talk about the Planned Parenthood part, which obviously impacts some might think of it sort of the younger group of people, but these Medicaid cuts really are going to have devastating effects across the board and in all the different types of health care infrastructure.
And I'm trying to think if there's any way that people would have other options for their health care, but you're basically the only source for a lot of folks or in a lot of areas, and that there's just not going to be any place for people to go except for, as you said earlier, increase the amount of uncompensated care that's out there or people delaying their care.
Absolutely. Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin really serves sometimes as an entry point into a healthcare system. So oftentimes we are seeing people who don't have an established healthcare provider. And sometimes, Planned Parenthood of Wisconsin's nurses and doctors are detecting things that people need to be connected to a specialist for. And so really that's that really important entry point. And sometimes Planned Parenthood is the only healthcare provider that people are seeing. And there just isn't another health system in Wisconsin, another safety net health system that is going to be able to absorb the number of patients. So these patients are really just not going to get healthcare. Our public health departments are also having their funds cut. Earlier this year, Title X funding was cut. Title X, for those who might not know, is a federal pot of money for family planning.
And again, on and on, the spillover effect that we will track in the coming months. We shouldn't have to do that, but the impact, tracing the impact, is what's coming up next. Chief Strategy Officer Michelle Velasquez, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, still ahead, Sean O'Malley with Markets and Money, Joe Sapecki, another check of the forecast with Brittany Merlot, all after the Midwest Farm Report here on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. All right, we're in break. Annalise, if you can hear me, thank you, as always. Oh, I guess I'd have to put you in the booth to find out. There you go. Hey,
That's
Annalise.
all right.
Hey,
Pat.
thanks
Yeah, thanks for this. The House just passed that bill.
Yeah, well, so we're following that through the morning here. All right, well, keep the impact coverage coming. We would be happy to pass that. I mean, not happy, obviously, but you know what we mean.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Annalise. Talk to you later.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Okay, see ya. All right, so next is this is completely self-contained. Has Parker dealt with that yet?
What do you mean?
A thing where the whole segment is on tape.
No, I don't think, okay. Parker, that's a question for you.
Yeah. So no, Parker, what in this case, and I used to do a lot more of this, but then we changed the clock and I'm kind of getting back into it, is sometimes when I pre-record an interview, if I've got the time and if it times out right, I will time it out exactly to the segment so that it's just one-stop shopping. You just have to hit the tape. The bumper music will be on there, the full interview, the bumper music out. The important part, though, is just remember to hit play right at the start of the segment. Otherwise, it's going to go into the next commercial break. So in this case, this particular one is all self-contained because it's going to be part of the Memorial Day stuff that I'm trying to put together here as well. So anyway, good chance to catch up on other things and monitor the tape to make sure nothing bad happens. So, all right. Thanks. And then let's see, Greg, so I'm not going to talk to you there. What have I got at 7:50? Oh, 7:50 is just freestyling. So that's, Greg, I'll ask you who's on the show and things like that. So,
okay.
All righty. See y'all in a bit.
Hey.
As Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress try to make massive cuts to safety net programs in order to give the wealthiest people and companies more tax breaks, they're doing so under the phony cover of attacking so-called waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, that's not to say there isn't some level of misuse in any program. Same could be said in your workplace. But that doesn't mean you fire a chunk of the workforce in order to give the CEO a bigger paycheck. But the truth is that a lot of Americans are hurting for a variety of reasons. And instead of providing more jobs or more job training or opportunities for education or help with childcare or healthcare costs, the response from Trump and Republicans to all these financially struggling families is, well, too bad. Our friends need the money. We talked to someone who helps process SNAP and Medicaid eligibility for struggling families in Wisconsin. He traveled to Washington this week to give members of the state's congressional delegation an insider's view of how these massive cuts would impact real people in our state.
My name is Abdiel Martinez. My job is I'm a SNAP and Medicaid eligibility specialist. The official title is economic support specialist, and I do that in Dane County, Wisconsin.
At what point do you have your first point of contact with somebody, and then tell me how the process is supposed to work?
There's 4 ways you can apply. You can apply the paper format. You can apply over the phone. You can apply on the online website that they have, or come into a local agency and apply in person. When you apply, we ask for verification of income. Depending on if there's an immigration status, right? So if they're not a U.S. citizen, we ask to verify immigration status. Once we verify the income for SNAP, we look at utilities and expenses. After going through all that and jumping through all those hoops, right? Every case is always different. After all that, though, we go ahead and review their income. If they're above or below the income limits. If they're below, they would be eligible, and we would be able to get them set up with for the SNAP benefits, for Medicaid and items like that. And if they don't qualify, we give them resources to the local areas where they could look for alternative care, free clinics, go to the marketplace, the Affordable Care Act, and just kind of give them a couple other options that way.
How is it conveyed to people when they first come to you that this is temporary relief designed to help get you through a tough time, and that this is not something that would necessarily be a permanent state? I mean, it may be for, say, Medicaid, disability, and things like that, but especially SNAP or for people who are newly unemployed, how is that conveyed that this is, in a perfect world, meant to be a temporary bridge to better times?
When it comes to SNAP and Medicaid, it really comes to a point where, you have people who from all backgrounds are applying, right? You can see people who just lost their jobs applying. You could see people who may have not have applied in years and are reapplying after 5, 6, 7 years since they last received the benefit. It really depends on the situation people are going through. And, you have a family of 5 where both mom and dad are working full time and still can't afford their groceries. If they have insurance to their job, the cost of that insurance to have for their kids is too high for them where they can't afford it. And so Medicaid kind of fills in that gap where they can get the Medicaid for their children, despite them working both full time. But it's to a point where, if it becomes unaffordable, if they can't afford food after working full time or healthcare, is it really temporary, or, it comes up to kind of a point where they have to kind of rely on that.
Well, especially, yes, for the children and for their health. So this whole notion that we're hearing the need for all these cuts because there's waste from all these folks who are otherwise employable, it seems to me that really misses how unstable families are economically around Wisconsin and around the country. And I wonder if you share that sense of economic instability that a lot of families are experiencing.
It's kind of interesting to hear those phrases, because I try to look at it kind of based on my experience. I've been doing this job for a year, and before that, I would work at a hospital to help people apply for Medicaid. I was at a company. This wasn't through the state or the county or anything. And I would see people in many different situations where they don't have insurance, or they just lost their insurance, and they have to pay, what, let's just say around about 20,000 for appendix, for ER visit. And it comes to a point where when you're in the hospital, you're recovering and things like that, and you can't work, you're not able to work because your body, everyone's body recovers differently. If you can't work for X amount of weeks or months, depending on your situation, on paper, yeah, maybe it looks like you can work, but in reality you can't, because of your health, because of this, because of that. So that's what I try to focus on the most when I hear those words abroad and being able to work. It's just like it's an individual basis. It's really just the need people have at some point.
There was a phrase that I used a lot when I was campaigning, that there are just so many people in Wisconsin who are one illness, one accident, or one layoff away from poverty. And it has always appeared to me that there is a certain group of folks in the country and in the state that don't want to believe that many families really are that close, that one accident, one injury, one illness, one layoff would make that big a difference. Do you see that on a regular basis?
I would say yes. I mean, I can say, a couple weeks ago, I've gotten calls from, a young person who had some savings, and they waited until the last minute to apply for SNAP benefits. There's people who didn't expect to lose their jobs over the winter, and all of a sudden, they got their last paycheck, they got paid good money, and all of a sudden they don't have insurance, they don't have food security anymore for the next month and the following month, because who knows how long it takes for them to get their job. And so, and kind of adding on to what you were saying, Pat, not just that, I think in reality, we're just 2 or 3 paychecks away from having to make decisions of, do we decide to pay for food, or do we decide to take our children to the doctor? Do we decide to buy this necessity for our transportation, or do we decide, to buy dinner for tonight? So, kind of adding on to that, it really doesn't take that long for us to find ourselves in a situation where we would need to apply for these programs.
When you do that as a SNAP eligibility specialist, and again, I say this as somebody who grew up on what you would call food stamps with a single mom back in the day there. So when you hear that there's this potential for billions, maybe even a couple $100 billion in cuts to SNAP and other nutritional assistance programs, I mean, that's such a big number. I don't think registers at the human level with a lot of people. If that were to really happen, what would be the human toll, do you think, around where you live and around Wisconsin and the country?
Where to begin on that? I mean, just looking at SNAP specifically, the max for a single household, right, one person in the home, is $292 a month, right? So a little bit less than $300. And that's in a perfect world where you can get the max. So going off that, and looking at the income, looking at your expenses, you qualify for the max allotment. Having these cuts for people who are already receiving the benefit, or kind of taking it a step further, where you have people who never thought themselves as needing that benefit, now having that door closed to them. You're taking away food security for those people. You're taking away health insurance security. And with that, they go from a state of barely of surviving to just barely surviving, or even lower than that. There are people who don't qualify for that. The minimum we can give is 23. So if you qualify for SNAP benefits, but the only amount, after jumping all those hoops, you only qualify for $23, what can that get you at that point? Having those cuts would basically make millions of Americans vulnerable to food insecurity, through having lack of health insurance, and thinking about what that impact could have on, like, going through Wisconsin, right? The impact of those people who rely on that benefit for their children. Their children aren't going to be able to get checkups. They're not going to be able to get food. They're not going to be able to go to the doctor. You have cases where they have a serious illness and have to go to the ER. The parents are going to be stuck with that medical bill. So the impacts, just even thinking about it locally, kind of, are scary to even think about.
you have decided to go to Washington and talk to members of the Wisconsin congressional delegation about this. That included Senator Baldwin's office and meeting with Congressman Mark Pocan. So let's start with them. Do you feel like Congressman Pocan gets it when it comes to the dangers of that level of cuts?
So when we met with Mark Pocan, it was, and I think of it like kind of like, being kind of just learning even in a deeper level how government works. But when I met with him, as soon as we started talking, I shared my story, and likewise goes with Senator Baldwin's office. They were both on board that these cuts should not be made. They were both saying, no, we shouldn't be having these cuts in general. And that kind of reinforced, my, I would say, trust, or I guess, kind of confirmed, the thoughts that Wisconsin has as a whole, I guess you could say. I don't speak for everybody, but just hearing that from our representatives, from our congressmen, it really shows to me like at least they're listening to what their citizens are saying, what their people are saying.
I understand that you tried to reach out to Congressman Derek Van Orden as well. Have you heard anything back yet about potentially informing him or a staffer about your view on how bad these cuts could affect people?
We did reach out and attempt to schedule a meeting, but we haven't heard anything back.
We have heard from the congressman, though, that he quite angrily denies that any cuts made in the House Agriculture Committee to nutritional supplement programs would hurt regular folks. He has repeatedly framed it as going after waste, fraud, bureaucracy, abuse, things like that. I ask you, as somebody who now admittedly you've been at this for, like you said, a year or so, but do you look at this and say, my gosh, there is so much waste, fraud, and abuse under SNAP benefits that I totally see how Congress can find a couple $100 billion to cut? Or do you not see such a massive level of waste, fraud, and abuse?
Whenever I think of the words and I hear those words coming from people of power and saying, oh, waste, fraud, abuse in these programs, it really comes to a point where with the overall economic impact of just not having these programs, right? If this were a program that was being abused, that was being taken advantage of, my thinking is how would cuts better this program? Because in reality, the purpose of these programs are clear. You have the overall economic impact that we discussed earlier of people having to make that decision of, can they afford to go out to eat? Can they afford to pay for a repair in their car, right? It always happens at the worst times. Can they afford to do XYZ thing? Or do they have to make a decision to go to the doctor? There's times where, when people say, oh, there's waste, fraud, and abuse, when in reality, it's just people looking for help. And that's what I see the most, is people looking for help, looking for that assistance that they would need. And so when they say that, it doesn't come to mind, because in reality, it's just people looking for help in these difficult times.
Zeb, we appreciate that very much. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here, Pat.
Zeb Martinez of Dane County, working with AFSCME and urging others to contact their members of Congress to oppose cuts to struggling families. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Tomorrow on the program, Kia Vakil from Courier Newsroom with more reaction to the House budget plan that passed this morning. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel will be part of our Week in Review panel, along with journalists Jennifer Scholze and Mark Jacob. One of the stories I know we'll talk about is how the Chicago Sun-Times got egg on its face by putting out a summer reading book list, recommended books. The whole thing was generated by AI and included a lot of books that don't exist. So we'll talk about newsrooms and their reliance on artificial, quote-unquote, intelligence. If you missed it earlier, the Democratic Party of Wisconsin announced that at their state convention next month in Wisconsin Dells, the keynote speaker will be Georgia Senator the Reverend Raphael Warnock. He'll be speaking there on June 14th. The convention is Saturday and Sunday, June 14th and 15th, and we will continue in our next hour our conversations with the three candidates to be the new state Democratic Party chair. Matinee on Air is coming up just over an hour from now. Greg Bach will be working feverishly between now and then to put a show on for us. What are you and Jane brewing now?
Right now it's Thursday, so it's always going to be a packed show on Thursday at 9:35. We welcome Jim Santel, who's the host of Amicus, a law review, which you can listen to every Saturday here on the Civic Media Radio Network. He talks about all the news that has to do with the law, and it's always something going on. And then at 10:20, we have got Civic Media's meteorologist and multi-award winner Brittany Merlot here to do some weather and wine, talking about the weather coming up this weekend, as well as a lot of twisters happening. And then we got Paul Noonan at 10:30 doing sports, and then this shouldn't be a thing at 10:50. It is a packed show, Pat.
My goodness, it is. And then tomorrow, for folks who would like to score some free tickets to see the Brewers at American Family Field, just be listening to your favorite Civic Media shows on Fridays throughout the baseball season. Listen for keywords. You'll be texting them in for a chance to win a 4-pack of Brewers tickets. Complete rules can be found at the Civic Media website. But yeah, you'll text it in through the Civic Media app. And Greg, that app has a cool new feature, which was wonderfully described by somebody who sent us the first ever one of these doohickeys. And here, much like the phone was started with Alexander Graham Bell going, "Dr. Watson, come quick, I need you," here is our moment for voice notes on the morning show.
Voice notes. Who knew?
Somebody had to try it first. Somebody had to break it in. So to that listener from WAUK, thank you very much for that. Hey, for a television news industry in a constant state of motion, I never thought I'd be uttering these words. Deborah Norville has been a model of stability. She began hosting Inside Edition in 1995, remained there ever since, and that 30-year run came to a close last night. This is truly in the too young for Parker department here, but from 1989 to 1991, Deborah Norville was at the Today Show, and it was such a soap opera that NBC did nothing to help themselves with when it appeared that Deborah Norville, the then 34-year-old telegenic newcomer, appeared to be pushing veteran anchor Jane Pauley out the door. And Jane Pauley then did finally leave. Deborah Norville became co-anchor. The ratings plunged, and pretty soon Deborah Norville was replaced by Katie Couric. Deborah Norville eventually found her way to Inside Edition, becoming the show's only their second permanent anchor after who, Mr. Bach?
Maury Povich.
No.
Bill O'Reilly. Oh, that's right. We're doing it live. Didn't Maury Povich host a show like
A Current Affair?
A Current Affair. Darn it.
Yep. There were all these tabloidy things that came up back then.
You said it with such confidence, too.
I know. So Deborah Norville.
We're doing it live.
Signing off for that. So I just wanted to mention that one as well. I also wanted to ask you guys if you think, and we see things in the comment sections all the time about, migrants and immigrants, blah, 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 and I always want to ask them, do you think you could pass a U.S. citizenship quiz?
Me?
Yeah.
I think so, yes.
You think you could?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that when I was finishing high school, I had to take it.
Okay.
What?
I think that was part of our history class. Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask you some questions here.
Oh, no.
And that's okay. It's an easy curve. There's 10 questions, and you got to get 6 to pass. Okay, it's a pretty low bar here. Name one of the 2 longest rivers in the United States.
The Mississippi.
Name another one. The two longest rivers.
Not the Mississippi.
Ohio River?
Nope, the Missouri. Okay.
Luke got it.
Who was president during the Great Depression and World War II?
Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Very good. Who was president during World War I?
Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, very good. Who is the current Chief Justice of the United States?
John Roberts.
Okay. What year was the Constitution written?
Your mom.
Parker?
Wait, no. Okay, go on, Parker.
1782?
1787. Very close. By the way, all of this is on the website, upnorthnewswi.com. We just turned it into a story where you could take some of these questions. The House of Representatives has how many members?
435.
Okay. How many amendments does the Constitution have currently?
27.
Ooh, Greg Bach, you are a citizen. Name one writer of the Federalist Papers.
John Jay.
Okay. Extra credit for any of the other two.
Alexander Hamilton, John Jay.
Jefferson?
No.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
There you go. James Madison. There.
Luke for the assist.
Yep.
Was he trying to help that way?
Yes.
He's such an Eagle
I don't
Scout.
I don't think he got Missouri River. I don't think he got that.
He did. He got Missouri River.
I don't believe you. It's fake news.
Misinformation.
I always get the Constitution. I always either want to say 1782 or 1787. I never feel confident enough to say one of the two. So,
well, there you go. And then there's one other question that was on there that we didn't include because it was more of an essay question. But it says, "What is the rule of law?" Which is only a cornerstone of our democracy, and the one question I think some folks in Washington might flunk nowadays. Greg Bach, American Citizen, is back in 1 hour for Matt and Air on Air, and then we'll talk to you again here tomorrow. Sam joins us, Parker as well, in our next hour, where we will have Chad Holmes, Sean O'Malley, Joe Zepecki, Brittany Merlot, and more here, mornings on the Civic Media Radio Network. Bada bang.
all right, I'm going to record that.
I'm a failed citizen. Okay.
I'm going to record that DVO clip. And Parker, can you hear me?
He appears to be talking to somebody else, probably Luke,
Okay.
and I don't see that his headphones are on. So maybe if we tell him, if we point at him, he'll put his headphones on. There, go for it.
What does that mean?
You. Yeah.
Parker, and for Sam, I'm going to cut this DVO clip, and then I'm going to email it to both of you, so Pat has it for the.
I'm going to start my. What?
I got Missouri. Don't
Settle down. We're taking care of business here.
Yeah, I got. Okay, so I'm going to record this. I'm going to email it to both of you, so Pat has it ready to play, and it'll be good to go.
And I'll be playing that near the top of the conversation with Chad Holmes coming up after
cool.
weather. All right.
All right. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Okay.
1787.
Luke being a creeper. You tell him, Shizu.
Dang.
Mm-hmm.
guy shredding it up on trombone last night.
Oh boy, here we go. It's my favorite boy band. Da, 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 da. We need to name you guys.
Hello.
Hello.
The joke is.
There's no joke. I mean, it's just.
Do one of you want to hop in here? Actually, well,
John Peter.
He was last 67 a.m. You can save that and cut it.
no. Okay, we're going with that. Just. What is Catherine going on about? Oh. Yeah. Right.
Let him have it.
Okay, now the headphones are off, but I think that might be Dom that's listening now. Okay. Did you get the Derek Van Orden thing that Greg sent over? Okay, good deal. How many people, Tony? As many as it takes. I require so many handlers. Wait, I'm just going to change the name here. There we go. All right. There. I have an entourage. How special do I feel? It's Brittany and the boys, everybody.
It sure is.
All right. Chad should be along shortly. 20 seconds.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
It's Pat Kreitlow. Yes, good morning. It's 8:06, but it's apparently so much more than that as well. Meteorologist Brittany Merlot is here, and in Madison, as Tony puts on YouTube, how many people does it take to produce this show? In there you have Parker, you have Dom, you have Sam, a.k.a. Luke has a new entourage, is basically what this comes down to. And the guys are happy to be here. And here, as if there weren't enough Brittany and the boys, Chad Holmes is with us as well. Ooh.
Matching Brittany.
Yes.
Red.
Oh, very
Red
nice.
Christmas.
All right. How's Brittany this morning?
Pretty chilly. How are you?
Yes, it's pretty chilly. Whereas in the Madison control room, it's just chill. Look at these guys vibing out there. So Parker and Dom and Sam and Luke. See what happens when it's a reflection on Greg Bach. When he has to take the 8 o'clock hour off, how many people does it take to replace a legend like Greg Bach?
Right.
This is where Luke gets up and calls him handsome and capable or anything else like that.
He's extremely handsome, extremely capable, and I don't know if I have enough people yet. I'm going to go find a couple more. Just give me a second. I'll be right back.
Cram into the control room here. So Chad and I will be talking about Ron Johnson's latest ghoulish descent into conspiracy theories. And we'll start off by revisiting a clip from Derek Van Orden. Now that the House of Representatives has just passed Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill to cut all kinds of things to pay for billionaire tax cuts, Let's refresh our memories on what Derek Van Orden had to say about cuts to SNAP benefits and things like that. That's after we get the forecast from meteorologist Brittany Merlot, who, yes, still chilly, but the sun's out. That's a big deal.
It is. Finally, we have been patiently waiting for it. After 2 to 3 inches of rain fell into parts of Wisconsin, we were soaked, drenched, and stuck under those clouds with breezy winds, and now everything is much calmer. Except for without the clouds, we don't have blankets keeping us warmer at night. So we've had a frost advisory ongoing up north. That's probably going to happen again tonight and again tomorrow night and probably through Saturday night as well. Chances for frost still linger, but that means the sunshine is taking over. It's in abundance. It's even headed down towards the south. You're going to see less and less clouds as the day goes on. And temperatures today will make it to the mid to upper 50s, flirting with about 60 in some spots south. And of course, we're going to keep getting warmer by a few degrees every single day. We're still looking at a ton of sunshine tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, even Monday. We'll see partly cloudy skies with maybe a chance of a light shower later in the day, but a lot of that rain stays down to the south as this high pressure system controls everything for us and gives us a beautiful Memorial Day weekend. It couldn't get any better. Maybe warmer, but
it could be warmer, but yeah, compared to like the center of the country, it's going to be a wet holiday weekend all the way through for them. Wet and stormy, and icky. So I will be I would love the warmth, but I'll definitely take the sunshine for a long weekend. Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Bye.
Chad Holmes is with us from 98.9 WXCO, and we'll talk about a couple of stories he's following. Then Sean O'Malley isn't far away to talk about money and markets. And then Joe Zepecki, one of the candidates for state party chair. We'll talk to him about his race for that position and a reaction to that House bill that passed. But speaking of the House bill that passed, Mr. Holmes, well, first off, how are you?
Doing great.
All right.
Beautiful morning.
It is, and you're busy outside covering all the spring sports as well. But let me start with a little piece of tape here, because this was Congressman Derek Van Orden when it was pointed out that the House Republican budget bill, the one they just passed a little over an hour ago, would do tremendous damage to cuts to Medicaid and to SNAP benefits and to things like that. And Derek Van Orden was not hearing any of it. Here he was a couple of weeks back.
I want to clear the air, and I'm going to dispel some things. If you're receiving benefits from the federal government lawfully as an American citizen, your benefits are not going to be reduced by a nickel. Okay, I'm going to say it again. If you're an American citizen that is lawfully receiving benefits from the federal government, your benefits will not be reduced by a nickel. Write that down.
Okay. Yeah.
I was raised in abject rural poverty by a single mother.
Yeah.
We're on
here.
welfare, food stamps, where you had a stamp, stick it on a card, go to the grocery store.
Yep.
I had
here.
subsidized lunches and government cheese.
Yeah.
I was the hungry child that my colleagues are talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
Yeah. Somebody
and the
has.
same people that told you during the last budgetary cycle that Republicans are going to cut Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, WIC, SNAP.
Sounds like he's getting angry.
They lied to you.
Ooh.
They lied openly to the American public. They're the same people that lied to you and are fear-mongering with hungry children and those most in need in our country. And it's unacceptable and it's despicable. This should be a nonpartisan committee. They're lying.
Oh, my.
I'm over it. Stop it.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman Van Orden. Chad, you remember that sound clip, don't you?
Yeah. And it really, it makes me angry when I hear the gaslighting that these folks do over and over and over again. If this man is so concerned about the truth, you have a person that has probably told more fibs, to be kind about it, leading his party and everybody down the line. It's sad. It's a sad statement. And Van Orden, again, is just, he thinks that by yelling at us that makes it a little more true, and it's not. And frankly, he's a scary dude, isn't he?
Well, you definitely.
I mean, really, I wouldn't want to cross that. It makes me think back to those teenagers that got screamed at him. I've been scared out of my mind.
Oh, he's been a screamer that way. And again, is just going to continue to deny and say it's all waste, fraud, and abuse when everything points otherwise. So that's one way.
I mean, let me really quickly there.
Go for it.
I mean, the idea that they keep on pounding on waste, fraud, and abuse. And then they try to hide everything that Doge has done. They've gone to the Supreme Court to try to hide everything that Doge has done. They should be thrilled to let it all out if there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse. Where's the list of all the prosecutions that Pam Bondi is going to be pushing forward because of all this waste, fraud, and abuse? I haven't seen it yet.
No, and you won't. Don't hold your breath
waiting
for it.
All make believe. And I mean, at the very least, we should have a base of realism in this country when it comes to trying to figure out very important issues. I'm not saying that everything that Democrats say are right when it comes to budgetary items, but at the same time, if we have, and that's a scary part of this era. The whole idea of the lies that come from the top with Donald J. Trump, right down through everybody that is on that side of the aisle, we can't have a battle of ideas anymore. It's that is the scary aspect. The whole democratic system is based on having a battle of ideas and then getting the best ideas to make for the best for the American people. And when you just start with a basis of lies, it's very difficult to get anywhere. And it's frustrating and it makes me angry.
It's a way to distract from the actual impact, which we talked about with our guests in the last hour. But there's another way to do it, and that's through distractions, shiny objects and things. And that takes us to Wisconsin senior senator and foremost conspiracy theorist, Ron Johnson, who could have been content wishing President Biden a full recovery from his battle with prostate cancer, and instead has announced a committee investigation of Biden's health and questioned his fitness for office. Chad, any validity to this, or is it another ghoulish effort to distract from Johnson's work/services and fund tax cuts for folks in Johnson's tax bracket and above?
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, let's make a list of what Ron Johnson has done for the state of Wisconsin and the people of the state of Wisconsin.
I think that's it. Yeah.
I mean, ghoulish is the word. He's an embarrassment. I've said this before, and I think I may have said it to you. If this man was of any capability, he would have been on the short list to become vice president of the United States in the last cycle. The state of Wisconsin, obviously, very important. If he was of any kind of talent at all, he would have been, at this point, among the leadership of the Republican Party in the United States Senate. What's the old saying that Ross Perot made back in the days? The old crazy ant in the cellar. That's what Ron Johnson is right now to the Republican Party, and I think they're thrilled whenever he does this kind of stuff because it adds fire. It kind of reminds me of this headline story this week where Patel and also who else was it? All the magazines are upset because they said that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. And they're all saying, "Oh, how could you be saying that?" It's all. I mean, there's this wing of the party that is full of these kind of folks, and they like to have Ron Johnson out there once in a while to kind of keep them in line a little bit. Say, hey, we still got we got one of your own here in the United States Senate. But again, he has done nothing for us in what now it's 14 years. I mean. Our long national nightmare, our long Wisconsin nightmare, but that's the point. What is Ron Johnson actually doing for the people of Wisconsin? It's not a whole lot. And this, again, is just, like you say, shiny objects.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it does nothing for anybody.
You can only talk about ivermectin for so long here. So one more thing I wanted to ask you about, and I probably haven't given you enough time to talk about it, but another housing plan in Wausau has been vetoed by the mayor, Doug Denny. And while I hear Doug Denny and I don't like, some of the things I've heard in the past, I don't want to jump to conclusions in that maybe there's validity to the concerns about this latest plan to build some duplexes on land that, has been or might still be contaminated to some degree. So is this something you're following?
I am. I a little bit. I don't want to step out of line because I don't know enough to be at this point to be able to, to say right or wrong. But what I will say is, and I've talked to other folks here in this community recently, one of the things that's jumped out about the mayor is this idea where he's gone from a guy that was going to be tending the store at City Hall to a guy that really has come out and is really acting like he knows everything. And again, obviously the mayor has certain power and certain responsibility and a certain position within any community, but it's really been surprising. And again, I think that's one of the things that a lot of folks have been talking about. It was not the far right that got Doug Denny elected in this community. This is a community that is very balanced, Wausau. And I think in someone I talked to somebody who said that she'd had a meeting with Doug Denny and said to him to his face, he said it was the people in the middle that got you elected, because you were going to say you're going to go back and be just a very straightforward executive. And now he is really stepping out, and he is using the veto power. And again, you have a veto power, but he is really not working with the board, with the city council. He is coming out as, I know everything. He has a very Trumpian point of view of the executive within this community, and I'm curious to see if that's going to continue, because he really has been, I think, a little different than what he was running on, and I think that's causing a lot of confusion for a lot of folks here in Wausau.
That somebody runs saying they'll be a centrist when it turns out that people who said they were going to actually be from the far right were correct. You want to see my shocked face? Chad Holmes.
You're smarter than I am. I got to say, I mean, he kind of pulled the wool over. And there's a certain talent to that. I'll tell you that much.
Again, that reminder, Scott Walker did not campaign on Act 10. It just magically appeared afterwards. That's Chad Holmes, 98.9 WXCO. Thank you, buddy. Talk to you a little later.
Thank you too, Pat.
Still ahead this hour, Joe Zepecki, as we continue our conversations with the people running for chair of the state Democratic Party. From the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota. Thanks for making this the place to spend part of your mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Mr. O'Malley, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Kreitlow. How are you?
I'm doing fine as well. Let's see. So we got tariffs here. The future's unclear, and then we've got the credit ratings.
The credit ratings, and there's a lot to dig into there in terms of the budget.
Yep.
You just announced that it passed the Senate within the last hour. So I took a look at what the market reaction is. It's somewhat stabilizing, I guess, which is good news, but there's a longer term issue that's lingering out there that we've talked about before that I want to get into today.
Okay. Sounds great. All right. We will get going in just under 3 minutes. I'll tuck you back in the waiting room and see you soon.
All right.
Milwaukee Brewers were losers in extra innings to the Baltimore Orioles. They still took 2 out of 3, and now they head to Pittsburgh for a 4-game series that starts tonight. Pre-game coverage at 5:05 on Civic Media stations in Richland Center, Oshkosh, Racine, Kenosha, Park Falls, and Hayward. Head to civicmedia.us for more. Again, 5:05 for pregame. Brewers against the Pirates tonight, and again, 5:05 tomorrow. The bond markets are looking with some unease over the implication for the national debt under legislation that passed the House of Representatives after a debate that stretched into the wee smalls today. And in the House, on the narrowest of margins, the final vote was 215 to 214 to approve legislation that would steer much more money away from the middle class, away from Medicaid, food assistance, education, clean energy, and run it toward tax cuts. And bond markets looking at the way that this bill would push up the national debt and budget deficits are not really fond of it, looking for a little bit more fiscal discipline. Let's talk to Sean O'Malley, a financial compliance and economics expert, with us now. Sean, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Pat. Thanks. Yeah.
I'm guessing you didn't stay up all night to watch the entire debate on the House floor.
No, I think a lot of the points that were going to be made are things that we've all heard before. And that's part of the uneasiness that you were talking about in the bond market, is that we're seeing the fact that the U.S. is having problems actually agreeing on a budget and getting a budget passed, and has a rather long history of doing so, is part of what's sort of feeding into the problems that we're seeing now.
Well, and it's led the major credit rating agencies to reduce their ratings on U.S. government debt. What was that about?
Yeah, that's correct, and that's a great lead-in. Thank you. So, because there have been problems passing a government budget in the U.S., there have been downgrades from all of the 3 major credit rating agencies. For those of you listening who don't necessarily know what the credit rating agencies are, tough to say it sometimes, they are basically entities that will evaluate the financial risk and creditworthiness of any particular entity. It can be a government, it can be a corporation, it can even be a municipality. And for the U.S. government, we've seen the credit ratings, which historically have been AAA for the vast majority of the 20th century, have now started to take a hit. So the first hit was when Standard & Poor's, or S&P, downgraded U.S. debt from AAA to AA plus back in 2011, largely because of the budgetary holdup assigned to what was then the Tea Party Republicans. And then in 2023, Fitch also joined S&P, downgrading the U.S. debt from AAA to AA plus, again, largely due to MAGA Republicans. And now, just recently, we've seen Moody's, the third of the 3 big credit rating agencies, downgrade U.S. debt from AAA to AA1. They have a slightly different schema for their credit ratings. But anyway, it's basically a downgrade now across the board. So there is no major credit rating agency that rates U.S. government debt AAA.
And even if there were concern, and there is, about government debt as a percentage of gross domestic product, the fact that there's not even the illusion that this new bill with its massive spending is being done for fiscal discipline reasons. This is all going toward tax cuts, predominantly, focused on the highest tax brackets, where, again, the markets see no fiscal discipline here. It's spending cuts without the savings.
Correct. And I think what you have to do in this case is we have to look at not what the rhetoric is, not what people are saying, or even economists are saying. Look at what the markets are doing. Actions always speak louder than words. And what we're seeing is that something that we've actually talked about on your show a couple of weeks ago, this whole idea of, people losing faith in the United States because of actions that are sometimes politically motivated. We're seeing a lot of things, we're having issues with our 2 nearest neighbors and closest trading partners. We're increasing tariffs across the board without any necessarily, economic need or strategic purpose behind it. And now we can't pass our own budget. And if we do pass the budget, as you point out, The upper income is going to benefit greatly at the expense of the middle class and the lower income folks. So what we're seeing is the investors are voting with their feet, and there is this new thing called "Sell America," and that's what that's the phrase that they're putting behind it when investors basically avoid bonds as well as stocks. And what happened yesterday is there was a 20-year Treasury note auction that yields gapped out significantly because there was reduced demand, lackluster demand for these bonds, because people don't want to buy American assets. They don't feel confident in basically the economic future of the United States right now. And by adding this budgetary deficit and increasing the debt basically on a rate of about $1 trillion every 3 months, it's not going to make it better. It's going to make it worse.
Yeah. And again, it's not so much about the economic fundamentals of the country as it is the politics, the decisions by policymakers that are causing so much uncertainty, even with tariffs, which we won't have time to update today. But, there's still the uncertainty, even with the recent drop in tariffs from China. But I have a pretty good feeling when we talk next week, these will still be relevant issues to discuss. Sean O'Malley follows it as a financial compliance and economics expert, Hudson native. Always great to talk to you, Sean. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you, check in a little later.
Very good. Thanks very much, Pat.
You
Take
bet.
care.
All right. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, too, by the way. And coming up, we are going to be talking to Joe Zepecki. He has been here regularly to talk about things that are in the news, but now he's also wearing the hat of running for chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. We talked to Devin Remiker yesterday, William Garcia tomorrow. Joe Zepecki is up next. Remember, sign up for our newsletters, plural. Head to that homepage, upnorthnewswi.com. Live from Lake Wissota. What a great place to spend part of your mornings on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. All right, we are clear. You good for next week?
Yeah, I'm all set for next week. Should be interesting. I'm thinking about, I don't know if this is outside of the scope of what you want to do, but there are some interesting things with respect to, I guess, in the fraud vein, I would say, or corruption, depending on, both are applicable, that we're seeing a lot of in numbers that are non-trivial.
Oh, okay. Yeah, by all means, send something over so I can do a little reading up on it, and we'll be ready for next week.
All right, we'll do.
All right, have a great weekend.
Yep, you too. Take care.
All right, see ya. All right, there you are. How you doing? Oh, can't hear you. I think you have to unmute yourself.
Living the absolute dream.
I'm not convinced you mean that. So what do we got here? Just over 2 minutes left. Raphael Warnock as the keynote speaker. Good get.
Yeah, that's a great get.
Yeah.
Why don't we do the party stuff after the commercial break?
That would be
right.
just
We'll
fine.
do what happened on the Hill last night, and then.
I'll have to do a little bit before the break because after the break, some of the stations pull away for a local update. So
got it. Okay.
But yeah, we'll do all that first, and then by 8:45, we'll get into the party stuff. So
okay.
How
was your trip?
Oh, it was a dream. It was an absolute trip. Portugal is beautiful. Yeah, can't recommend it highly enough. And all the flying. I'm not going to say it was perfect. Flying's never perfect.
That's
but,
right.
All things considered, it was just a really nice getaway. So
Good.
still paying the price with the jet lag and everything.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Did you see my note about Joe Radke?
I did, and I think I know what you're talking about.
He's got an idea for you of a superior voice to.
Yep. I did see it, and somewhere in the vacation maelstrom, it is in my starred emails.
Okay.
I remember putting it there that to come back to, and I haven't come back to it yet.
Got it.
So yes, as soon as you said that, we were good. Let's see what do we got here. Okay, nope, we're good. All right, just under a minute, and then we're back. Let's see, coming up here on the Maggie Dawn Show, we're going to talk about veterans' health and benefits with a guest from the Center for American Progress. Jeremy Janine from Urban Milwaukee will be on the program as well. Todd Alba is on location in Eau Claire. Oh my gosh, Todd Alba is creeping closer. He will have Paul Noonan, sports writer for the Acme Packing Company, on. He'll be talking to, that is for Matt Nair on Air. I didn't scroll properly there. So Paul Noonan is part of Matt Nair on Air. Then Todd Alba is on location, and he will be talking with somebody from the Nature Conservancy about support for conservation in Wisconsin, which I would imagine as well is threatened by the Republican budget plan that passed the House earlier this morning after an all-night session. And that's where we're going to begin things with Joe Zepecki. And then we'll get into his run as one of the three candidates for chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. But with the work that he does with Protect Our Care and with other groups, it's fair to say that Joe's got a thing or two to say about the bill that passed the House and the damage that it could do to people all across Wisconsin. Joe Zepecki, good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing? Good to see your face. We missed you last week.
Well, thank you. It was great to get away. It is really great to be back. It's nice to have the sun out again. And we saw the note this morning that Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock is going to be the keynote speaker at the State Democratic Convention next month in Wisconsin Dells. Good get?
Oh, tremendous get. One of the most compelling and dynamic leaders within our party. You don't have to be religious to know that when you are listening to Rev Warnock, you are going to church. And so anybody who is not already signed up to attend the Wisconsin State Convention for the Democratic Party in the Wisconsin Dells on June 14th and 15th, don't miss out. You can still get your tickets, and you can still get a little bit of preaching in your soul. It'll be good for all of us.
And I don't doubt he's going to have some things to say about where they are in the federal budget process, which I hasten to add is far from a done deal. It now goes to the Senate, where Republicans there are not necessarily in alignment with Republicans in the House. But regardless, Joe, the final product probably isn't going to be great for a lot of folks in Wisconsin. But let's start with what we know, and that's what passed the House early this morning. And just how bad could this thing be?
I want to start by quoting the distinguished gentleman from, where is Tom Massey from? Kentucky? Thomas Massey last night on the floor said the following about this monstrosity. Quote, "We are not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. We are putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight." End quote. And so that was one of the 2 Republicans who voted against this. There were other Republicans who took what is sure to go down in the annals of this country's history as profile and courage moments where they voted present, which made it a 215 to 214 vote, which means that every single Republican member of Congress was the deciding vote for legislation that will make healthcare more expensive, make your energy bill more expensive, explode the debt, make it harder for people with low incomes to feed their families, all so Elon Musk can get another tax cut. And that is, you can't argue with any of that. And Republicans know it. And so I will stop pounding on them and congratulate Hakeem Jeffries on becoming the first African American in history to serve as Speaker of the House. Because there is a reckoning coming in this country next fall, and that is that Republicans are going to be wiped out. Derek Van Orden, Brian Stile, heck, Fitzgerald and Grothman are all on notice because they passed the deciding vote for this monstrosity of a bill.
It seems, though, as I look at the statement that just came down from Derek Van Orden, that there's still this feeling like the only people they work for are the people who voted for Donald Trump. The Van Orden statement says, "This bill takes great strides in fulfilling the mandate that was given to President Trump by 77 million Americans. Without this bill, Wisconsinites would have seen a 25% tax hike. As the Democrats spend time fear-mongering with lies that this bill will cut benefits, Republicans got the job done by delivering tax savings and benefit protections for the American people." Near as I can tell, Joe, the only fact in that entire statement was that President Trump did get 77 million votes.
There was one other fact. Derek Van Orden is a member of Congress for now. I'm sure it said, said Representative Derek Van Orden. And we can come back to DVO in a second, but he's lying. He's lying, and lying. He said he would not vote to cut food stamps. He said he would not vote to cut Medicaid. CBO scores, that's the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, have laid out the facts that millions of Americans will lose health care, that this bill is an incredible redistribution of income in this country, where those at the bottom will be hit the hardest and have a harder time getting by, and those at the very top, the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, will get extraordinary benefits. So I guess my question is, what the hell is populist about any of that? About redistributing wealth from the working poor, from working families, from people working their tail off to get into the middle class, just so Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg can buy, another Hawaiian island, another mega yacht. This is madness. And it is not what people who voted for Donald Trump voted for. Maybe some of them, maybe those uber rich, but I'm here to tell you, man, if this thing becomes law, which is not a guarantee because we've got the Senate to go, and then we've probably got a conference committee between the Senate and the House if the Senate doesn't pass exactly the same version. But if this
Looks like we've lost Joe.
It looks like we did. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't me here, but it looks like we may have lost Joe's signal here for a bit. So we'll look to have him reestablish that. And in fact, what I'm going to do here quick is there we go. That way, I'm going to hit a button so he knows to click another button and come back in. So our apologies for that. Thank you, Sam, for updating where the problem was. That you're still hearing me. You're still seeing me. I haven't been lifted out of, my chair here in Lake Wissota. So hopefully we'll catch up with Joe again. But again, the point that I was about to make to Joe, and you're going to hear this from me a lot, is, and I think we've got Joe back now after a little signal interruption here, Joe, but the point you were getting to and that I was going to follow up with is we're going to hammer this point a lot about how this isn't the spending cuts aren't actually any kind of savings because they go to tax cuts, because we're going to take nothing for granted. All throughout 2024, I said, people should know that Trump killed that immigration bill just so he could campaign on the issue, and yet it worked for him. Even though he killed the bill, he campaigned on the issue and he won on it. So how do Democrats avoid making that mistake again, where we point out the obvious, that this isn't going to you, it's going to millionaires and billionaires, and yet somehow I think everybody fears that Republicans are just going to get away with what Derek Van Orden just said, that somehow this is about cost savings when it's anything but.
Have you been watching Andor?
I have not.
Oh my God. It's the greatest thing on TV you've seen in quite some time, whether or not you're a Star Wars fan. But I want to share something remarkable. This is of course a spy thriller just before, Luke Skywalker saves the galaxy. But Andor is this interregnum, and there's a speech from Mon Mothma, who is one of the leaders of the Rebel Alliance. And so for the first time in the last couple of weeks, people saw her speech to the Galactic Senate. And I want you to listen to this quote and tell me if any of it sounds familiar. "The distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest."
Well, if that doesn't describe what you see on C-SPAN every day, I don't know what does.
Donald Trump is the monster who is screaming the loudest.
Yeah.
And he's got his little lackeys like Derek Van Orden, who are lying to your face, whether they know it or not. This bill cuts Medicaid, makes it harder for people who are working their tail off to provide for their family, and maybe a parent, an aging parent in a nursing home, or maybe a kid with special needs. There's a woman who appeared with Senator Baldwin yesterday to talk about this. She and her husband both work full-time. They have health insurance through their employer. They are living the American dream. And their son was born with special needs. They didn't know it until he was born. And if they did not have Medicaid as a supplemental, one of them would have to leave the workforce and be the full-time caregiver for their 9-year-old. On what planet is making it harder for those parents to recertify their child's permanent special needs good public policy? There's no explanation for why they should have to go twice a year instead of once a year when there is no growing out of the challenges that this young man faces.
No.
But and so when we talk about CBO saying between 10 and 20 million Americans could lose access to health care, that's not rooting out fraud, waste, and abuse. That's making your and my health care cost more. That is making it harder for rural hospitals to stay open so that people, if they're injured in an accident, either, on the farm or driving, on the highway, they're now at greater risk of dying because they can't get to a hospital that's actually open and staffed. And that is going to be the cost of this.
I got just over a minute before we have to take a break here, so I have to ask you where you are in the campaign for state Democratic Party chair. We had all the conventional or congressional district conventions. What you up to these days?
Working my tail off, running around like a head with its chicken cut off. I'll be up north next week. Going up to Waushara later today. Was in Ozaukee County last night. It's going great because people know that all is not well with the Democratic Party of Wisconsin. People know that, as Bernie Sanders says, change never comes from the top down. And while we certainly are surprised that Ben Wickler went back on his word and commitment to stay out of this race, which no one made him do, by the way, he chose to do that on his own, and then a month into it, decided he knows best. And frankly, I think they and I have been a little surprised by the response, which is people going, "Wait a minute, you said you were going to stay out, and it is the delegates to the convention who should decide this thing." So I'm feeling great picking up support every single day. And if you're going to convention, I'd be honored to earn your support as well.
I think we'll be talking a lot about this a few more times before the state convention next month in Wisconsin Dells, as Joe continues to travel around in his campaign for state party chair. And again, we'll talk to William Garcia tomorrow in our 8 o'clock hour about that as well. First, a reminder here that tomorrow on the program, it'll be Friday. It's our Friday in Review panel with Jennifer Schulze and Mark Jacob and former U.S. Attorney Jim Santel. We'll talk to Kia Vakil from Courier Newsroom as well. We'll talk a little sports heading into the weekend, and we'll get Brittany Merlot's weekend forecast. I'm Pat Kreitlow, reminding you that our Pledge of Allegiance says it all, down to the very last word: liberty and justice for all. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. All righty, this is a 3-minute, 20-second break. So I'll pop you away again so you can make some noise. See you in a bit. We've got Brewers baseball across the Civic Media Radio Network. Stations in Richland Center, Hayward, Park Falls, Racine, Oshkosh have the Brewers against the Pittsburgh Pirates. 4-game series in Pittsburgh. Pre-game coverage begins at 5:05 this evening and again tomorrow, and then a couple of games over the weekend as well. Would you like to win some free tickets to see the Brewers play at American Family Field? Just be listening to your favorite Civic Media shows on Fridays throughout the baseball season. We'll give you a keyword, text it in for a chance to win a 4-pack of Brewers tickets. Complete contest rules can be found over at civicmedia.us. Joe Specky's with us. We've been talking about his run for state party chair. And before we get back to that, I did want to ask you about one development during the week here, and that is Appeals Court Judge Chris Taylor, a former state legislator, announcing that she'll be running for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Most likely, conservative Justice Rebecca Bradley will be running for re-election as well. A lot of folks see that that matchup between Rebecca Bradley and Chris Taylor as the best possible. If you're a progressive, you want to see this election. I'm sure a lot of people on the right feel the same way about Chris Taylor. What's your early view on the way the race looks right now?
Well, I'm not sure that Chris Taylor will be the only candidate, but Chris is certainly a proven progressive with a track record. What I want to focus on is telling folks why this matters. I know it seems a little strange that 7 weeks after the last court race, we're at this again, right, with a 45-week campaign. Because we all just heard that after Susan Crawford won, we've locked in the progressive majority on the state court for a while. And we have. And here's why I would ask folks to buckle up and strap in and lock in and get ready to go again. That progressive majority is guaranteed through August of 2028. In November of 2028, there will be a presidential election in Wisconsin. We have seen Republicans try to steal elections before, try to strike at the very heart of our democracy. And if you care about that, if you care about the will of the people being reflected through elections, we need you to saddle up and ride one more time to ensure that progressives control the Wisconsin State Supreme Court through the next presidential election. So buckle up, folks. We got to do this all over again.
And, coming out of the convention next month, whatever the outcome of the chair's race, that will certainly be top of mind for, the next state party chairs, knowing that before even the midterms, before we wonder if Governor Evers is running or isn't running for a third term, that there is this state Supreme Court race that's going to be coming up first. So we got an overall update on your run for chair, about Ben Wickler deciding to make an endorsement in the race. You've been making these tours around the state, and I've asked you all three of you, the same kind of, don't let yourself be boxed in question. Devin Remiker as the party insider or the Madison person. And like he said yesterday, he's actually from the La Crosse area and he's worked around the state. I'm sure William Garcia tomorrow will say, don't just think of me as the outstate candidate from La Crosse. I've done, a whole lot and know a lot about the party. So likewise, we have to ask the question again. Joe Specky's the guy in Milwaukee. He's from outside the party. He's done this work as a strategist consultant. How do you as well break out of that pigeonholed box and say, hey, look, I'm the full product over here?
Well, nobody ever succeeds when they try to put me in a box.
Okay, baby. Nobody's putting you in a corner either,
right.
Let me tell you.
That's right. No, I think our differences as candidates are most clearly visible when you look at the totality of our experience. There's only one candidate out of the three of us who has worked in other states, and that's me. I've worked on the ground in places like Nebraska and Iowa and Nevada. There's only one candidate who has worked nationally, in the headquarters of a federal agency, managing 30 staff, 26 of whom are career federal civil servants, and then across 68 district offices around the country at the U.S. Small Business Administration for President Barack Obama. Devin and William are great Democrats and good friends, and their experience is not equivalent in terms of what I have done and the experience that I will bring to bear on this. And so that's the case I'm making to delegates, is that, talk is cheap and easy, and what actually matters is making change. Making change is really hard. And listen, if folks think that everything is A-OK and hunky-dory within the Democratic Party, there's a candidate in this race who is, whose message is stay the course and who comes from inside the party. I don't think that is how Democrats are feeling. And if I thought that the right approach to curing what ails our party was to have the same people in the same positions of leadership in the same rooms, I wouldn't be doing this, right? Because if that's what the appetite for Democrats was, then I would have said, okay, then those candidates, that candidate's in the race. But I don't think that's what people want, and that's what I'm continuing to hear around the state.
Well, and that's where I don't mean to take it in a negative direction, but I'm going to wrap up by asking this. When you talk to people, what among party members, what is their top fear or worry or concern about switching chairs, and what do you tell them? What are their concerns?
Well, I don't think there is any concern, right? I mean, like everyone is worried about the ability to sustain the fundraising challenge, but none of us know whether we'll be able to raise money like Ben Wickler until we're in the chair. But what people are asking is, and concerned about is a top-down approach, a one-size approach, fits all, that doesn't work for county parties, right? And so that is a real frustration among the grassroots of our party, and real challenges with how it comes to communicating our messages and our values, right? Our brand is busted. The communications aren't landing. People know that we need to be better and do better. And the more I talk about the ways in which we can do that, the more support I'm getting. And that's the case that I'm going to continue to make, which is we have to make changes. Listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's things within the party that are going well and going strong, but there's also a ton of work to do. We've lost 2 out of the last 3 presidential elections. Ron Johnson is still our United States Senator. So we've got work to do. And if you're listening to this and you agree with me, come on board. We'd love to have your support.
Joe Zepecki, thanks as always. Safe travels to you. Talk again soon.
Thanks, Pat.
All right. Hey, tomorrow, again, Kia Vakil, Jim Santelli, Jennifer Schulze, Mark Jacob. Coming up next, Matt Nair on Air. My thanks to today's guests, Joe Zepecki, Sean O'Malley, Chad Holmes, Zab Martinez, and Michelle Velasquez. I'm Pat Kreitlow, founding editor for Up North News, a pro-democracy news network. We'll see you tomorrow morning.